but I didn't. Now we move on to item 10, which is the Statement of Investment Policy and Objectives of the Self-Insurance Fund, and we welcome back Mr Bishop and Vasha. Thank you.
Kia ora, everyone.
Look, thank you, Madam Chair. So this paper relates to the Self-Insurance Fund, the establishment of which was approved by this committee back in October last year. We have appointed Russell Investments as the fund manager, and with them we have developed a Statement of Investment Policy and Objectives, or a SIPO for short. And the intention of this document is to outline how the investments in the Self-Insurance Fund will be managed. This policy, which you see in front of you today, has been endorsed by our internal insurance management steering group. And just to remind you, that consists of representatives from Council, all the CCOs, and 3 independent members. Now, the goal of the SIFO is to achieve both long-term growth in the value of the assets, but also maintain sufficient liquidity to pay any claims which come due. What you see from the policy, it's a fairly standard approach to investment, split 50-50 between really income and growth assets. The SIPO also includes a responsible investment policy that's based on a best endeavours approach, which recognises our limited ability to exclude some securities from the portfolio. Assuming this is approved by the committee today, we would look to capitalise the self-insurance fund around the 1st of October, and then we would report back to this committee on a quarterly basis on both the insurance of the performance of the self-insurance fund, including the investment performance. Madam Chair, I'll probably pause there and hand back to you for any questions.
Okay, any part-I? No? Well, look, that's always good. It means that it's self-explanatory. Any comments? I'll just make a comment. I'll just reiterate that, of course, the reporting, including performance against agreed benchmarks, will be provided to whatever the Finance Committee looks like next term in a quarterly manner, and the IMSG monthly. So I want to thank you for your work that you have done putting this together. It's a very responsible paper, and I wish it really well. So I'd like to move, and I will ask Deputy Chair to second, and then take it to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. We move now to item 11, which has 3 disposal recommendations, and I welcome to the table Anthony Lewis from Eke Panuku, Matt Casey, and Letitia from Eke Panuku. Oh no, just Letitia and Nats. Welcome.
Good morning. Unfortunately, Matt's off sick today, so he does tender his apologies. Good morning. Thank you. As the Chair has kindly mentioned, we have 3 properties which have no public work requirement, and we are recommending their disposal to the committee. Just to go through some of the points, we have undertaken the normal asset recycling process of discussing with the wider council group, engaged with mana whenua, local boards. We've informed ward councillors of the impending recommendations and the IMSB. Property-specific information. The subject part of 33 Brandon Road has been released by Council's Healthy Waters Department as no longer required for stormwater retention purposes. It's part of a larger site which will remain in council ownership. The parts remaining in council ownership have stormwater detention ponds. We have engaged with the Waitakere Rangers local board. The board has resolved that they oppose the disposal. They seek to retain it for recreation purposes. Eke Panuku has responded to the board with a joint statement from Council's Land Advisory Services saying the subject 584 metre part has not been identified for recreation purposes. There are large reserves within a couple of hundred square metres of the site. Retaining it would mean there's no street frontage, so there are potential SIPTED issues. It also would be adjacent to stormwater retention ponds, which would be a safety issue. There's only quite a low 1 metre high fence, so its retention for that purpose is not supported. The other sites are 17 Erston Avenue, which is a small 603 square metre car park behind commercial properties on Mount Albert Road. AT has released it as not being required for its purposes. They have legalised the adjacent service lane that will remain in council ownership. The primary users of this car parking area are the adjacent gym, pub and tennis club. Should the committee approve the disposal, we will seek or follow up any interest from those adjacent property owners if they seek to acquire it. The final site is 2 Levine Place, which is a large commercial property originally acquired by Auckland City Council for the Waipuna road widening project. AT have released it as that project is no longer progressing. The property is subject to a number of covenants and restrictions in terms of development and activities on the site in favour of the former developer. So that former developer has any say on what future use occurs on the site, where driveway entrances are. So it is very restricted in terms of future council use or any development in the private sector. So that has been released. The Magakiki Tamaki Local Board has been consulted. They support the disposal of those 2 sites. And happy to take any questions. Thank you. Oh, sorry, one couple more points. The valuation for Brandon Road is a pro rata assessment based on the square metrage of the rest of the site, which is a stormwater asset, hence the low valuation. If the committee does approve the disposal, we will undertake a couple of valuations prior to any offer to the adjacent landowner, who is the successor in title. Those valuations will be based on what value that would provide to the adjacent owner's development, rather than just on per metre valuation. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question first from the Deputy Chair and then Councillor Fletcher. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And my question, just directing colleagues to paragraph 4 of the executive summary, which I think summarises things fairly well. But I'm wondering if staff can comment more on the potential SIPT head and safety issues of the Brandon Road site.
Yes, through the Chair. So obviously it doesn't meet the minimum size requirement for a pocket park. It's down a long, narrow driveway with no street frontage. If it's retained for recreation purposes, that would be the only legal access. It would back onto private properties from the adjacent side. There's no public access that way. The fence is only about 1 metre high, and across the fence are quite deep stormwater retention ponds. So you've got SIPT head issues and potential safety issues with children down a long driveway with no overseeing visibility, and those ponds which are there.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher.
Oh, thank you. I just want to ask around the Erston Avenue property in Royal Oak. It's primarily used for car parking at the moment, and Auckland Transport have felt comfortable in releasing it for sale. Can you just take me through an understanding? And I can see why this has been put to us as a recommendation, but I just want the comfort of knowing that the car parking provisions, because as I understand it, it was the Legacy Onehunga Borough Council or somebody or another that determined that there was a need for car parking in that area. So could you just expand a little more fulsomely on whether you in releasing this feel that there is adequate car parking in that area, and what the views of the local board were?
Yes, through the Chair. So that's correct. The former Onehunga Borough Council originally acquired the site, and the service lane was built in 1988, I believe. AT have only just formally legalised the service lane as a road in 2020. AT have undertaken their own assessment as part of their own internal property optimisation work. They've consulted all their departments, including parking, including the elected member relationship team, the future strategy team, all departments. They believe they have no future use for it. It's not primarily used as a public car park. It's pretty much exclusively used by adjacent businesses and retail units. So they believe it has no impact on public car parking due to its current use. If you have a look at the aerial, I don't know what page it is, part of the car park is actually on privately owned land owned by the tennis club.
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
And the local board are supporting this?
Yes, fully consulted with them, responded to questions. Their main questions were about the future use of it, what could occur. Because of the nature of the site, any standalone development is unlikely to occur. It would have to be a property owner who owns adjacent shops to possibly incorporate it.
So maybe the hotel, the
gym,
complex
yeah,
there,
where
or
the
the
gym's
gym
located,
or someone.
yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, thank you for your work on that, and thank you for the explanation and the confirmation that the local board support this. Thank
Not
you.
a problem.
Thank you, councillor. Your worship.
Yeah, I think you've just answered my question. The only looking at the Urson Avenue car park, which I'm familiar with, the only likely purchaser of that would be the commercial premises that currently use it. We pay for it and they use it privately, so that would be where the sale would likely go.
Through the chair, we do have we have registered.
Okay, so
interest
it
from one of
makes,
those
to me, it makes absolute sense that they're using it as if it was theirs. They might as well pay for it. Thank you.
You and Councillor Fletcher having a very unusual mutual thinking. Yeah, it must be back here, I don't know. Any other questions? Any comments? I'd like to then move the recommendations. I'll ask the Mayor to second. And with no further questions or comments, I will put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. We move now to item 12, the adjacent 176 Princess Street West Pukekohe, and the local government consultation around that. Letitia, do you want to lead off?
My colleague Andrew Alcote, who has led work on this.
Okay, Andrew, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. Yes, we're here to present a report that seeks confirmation from the committee on a 2019 resolution to dispose of the property adjacent to 176 Princess Street West in Pukekohe, subject to relevant statutory clearances, and this was approved as part of Eki Panuku's Unlock Pukekohe High Level Project Plan. For background, the property was acquired as part of a larger block in 2001, but it was always intended to be sold. So the balance of the block is classified under the Reserves Act as Recreation and Drainage Reserve, while adjacent 176 is held under the LGA. Given the 20-year gap and the property's relationship with the neighbouring reserve land, it's been deemed that it meets the definition of a park under the LGA, and it's therefore subject to the disposals process outlined in section 138, which requires the completion of public consultation prior to sale. Eki Panuku has now completed a month's worth of public consultation, placing notices in the local newspaper, on the council's website, and letters were sent to adjoining owners. One submission was received, as outlined in the report, and this was primarily a purchaser inquiry. The local board continued to support the sale, and the recommendation is for the committee to confirm the previous decision to dispose.
Thank you, Andrew. I'll open now for questions. Deputy Mayor, would you like to move this?
Happy to, Madam Chair. It's well done.
And your worship, would you like to second? Yep. Any comments? Oh, thank you very much on behalf of us all, emulating the Deputy Mayor's very short and succinct words as per usual. So thank you for your work team around this, and it's been moved and seconded, so I'll now take it to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
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 Against? Carried. Thank you. We now move